Imagine a city so old. It wasn't built with bricks, but with stars. A civilization that watched the sky not with telescopes, but with temples. And at the center of it all, a silent priest who claimed he could hear the voice of the heavens. Today, you'll fall asleep to the story of the world's first stargazers and the forgotten city that dared to speak with the gods. Now close your eyes, breathe deeply, and step with me into the moonlit dust of time. The wind whispered over the plains of Sumer. Soft and warm, it carried the scent of clay, reeds, and ancient river water. Night had fallen. The great city of Eridu, once the jewel of the world, lay still beneath the stars. No horns, no footsteps, only the slow breath of the earth itself. A single man walked across the temple courtyard. His robe trailed across the stone. His name was Enlil-Nasir, high priest of Eridu, and the last living guardian of a secret older than kingship. He did not speak. He had not spoken in years. The stars spoke for him. The ziggurat loomed ahead like a mountain carved by forgotten gods. Its steps were wide and worn, smoothed by centuries of bare feet and silent prayers. Enlil-Nasir climbed slowly, each step echoing into the night. Above him, the stars burned cold and steady. They did not twinkle. Not here, not in this sky. They watched. On the highest terrace, wind danced around clay pillars, tugging at his robe. There was no light except the stars. He knelt. Before him stood a circular basin of polished black stone. It reflected the heavens perfectly, a mirror of the sky. This was no ordinary altar. It was a map written in constellations and time. Enlil-Nasir reached into the folds of his robe and drew out a shard of golden obsidian. He held it to the sky, and the stars answered. They shifted. One by one, they blinked and moved. Not in the heavens, but in the reflection. The basin rippled. The city was listening. The surface of the black basin shimmered like liquid glass. Enlil-Nasir kept his eyes fixed on the reflection, not the sky, but what lay behind the sky. There, in that celestial mirror, he saw a city. But not a city. This one had towers of red stone and canals that stretched like silver veins through the earth. Men in strange robes floated across the water on reed boats, their chants lost to the wind. The vision deepened. Scribes with square beards carved on wax tablets. Children danced under hanging gardens. Then shadows. The waters ran black. The walls crumbled, and the stars turned red. A voice, not heard but felt, pressed against Enlil-Nasir's soul. The river will forget. The names will vanish. But the watchers remain. He gasped, not from fear, but recognition. This city had not yet lived, and yet he knew it. He had walked its streets. In dreams, the vision faded, but its weight remained, heavy and full of thunder. Enlil-Nasir opened his eyes. The basin was still. The stars were silent again, but the message burned inside him. He turned from the altar and walked to a low stone table beneath a canopy of carved beams. Laid out before him were tablets of soft, waiting clay. No scribes, no tools. He used his own fingers, old, steady, shaped by silence. Each press, each stroke, each cuneiform mark whispered a warning. The river gives and the river takes, but stone remembers, and clay will speak when mouths no longer do. He wrote of gods with eyes like flame, of cities drowned beneath sand, of names that would vanish and return, carved in ruins that no one would understand. His breath slowed, not in fear, but peace. He had spoken to the future, and the future would someday listen. He placed the last tablet gently into a sealed jar, buried deep in the temple floor. Then, without looking back, Enlil-Nasir descended the ziggurat. Centuries passed like breath in the dark. The river shifted. The people left. The ziggurat cracked under storms of sand and silence. Eridu became a name only old men whispered, then forgot entirely. But the stars did not forget, and neither did the earth. One day, long after the last priest had vanished into dust, a traveler arrived. He was not a king, not a warrior, just a man with dust on his sandals and questions in his eyes. He carried no torch, only a journal, and a strange feeling, as if he had been here before. At the center of a sun-baked mound, he saw it, a circle of black stone, polished like a mirror, buried for thousands of years, but still watching the sky. His hand shook as he cleared away the clay. Beneath the altar, the jar, and inside it, the voice of a dead priest, carved into clay. Waiting, he held the tablet gently, brushing away the dust with the edge of his sleeve. The cuneiform was crude, ancient, older than any he'd studied. He lit a small fire, opened his journal, and began to read. Each symbol pulled at something deep inside him. Not memory, something older, something buried in all of us. To the one who finds this, you're not the first, and you will not be the last. The stars are alive. They speak, and they have always spoken to those who listen. He paused. The fire crackled. Outside, wind moved through the ruins like a voice finding its way back home. He turned the tablet over. There, etched into the corner, was something strange. A star map, one he didn't recognize. Not a constellation from his books. Not from Earth, but from somewhere else. He looked up. The stars above were still. But now, he wasn't sure they were silent. The stars he saw weren't random. There was rhythm, a pattern, 3 points forming a triangle, a fourth pulsing faintly at its edge. The same shape carved in the priest's basin. The same lines in cave walls halfway across the world. He flipped back through his journal. Drawings from other sites, Göbekli Tepe, Mohenjo-daro, even the Nazca lines, all showed the same constellation. Impossible, or inevitable. The priest had called them watchers. Guardians, perhaps? Messengers? Or something else entirely. He stood up, the tablet still warm from his hands. The wind picked up, dry and electric. He turned to leave, but paused. There, on the broken ziggurat wall, a shadow. It moved. No sound, no breath, just a flicker, as if the city knew he had understood. Far away, in a deep silence where memory fades. And Lil Nasir stirred, not in body, but in thought. A ripple in time, a whisper returning. He saw the man, the traveler, standing where he once stood, holding the tablet he had buried, reading the words he had pressed with trembling hands. And in that moment, something unlocked. Not just knowledge, but remembrance. The stars pulsed once more. Not in light, but in rhythm. One speaks, another hears. One falls, another rises. The watcher becomes the watched. In the great halls of time, a door opened. In Lil Nasir, the silent priest saw 1,000 futures. Cities yet unborn. Languages not yet spoken. Eyes looking up, still searching. He smiled. Then he was gone, and the stars remained. And just like that, the stars have spoken. You just drifted through a forgotten city that mapped the heavens with stone, where a silent priest carved a message that waited thousands of years just to reach you. Think about it. A man from 5,000 years ago wrote something in clay, so you, lying in bed tonight, would remember his world. That's not just history. That's time travel. If the city of Eridu, the priest in Lil Nasir, and the traveler stirred something inside you, know this. There are hundreds more forgotten cities beneath our feet. Thousands of messages left in stone. And the stars? They're still speaking. You just have to listen. The wind rolled gently across the Indus plains, rustling the tall reeds like voices forgotten. The sun had just fallen below the horizon. Cool darkness stretched over the ruins. Mohenjo-daro slept. The bricks still stood, stacked by hands 5,000 years gone. Straight streets, symmetrical walls, an order too perfect for accident, too quiet for peace. Somewhere within that silence, a sound echoed. Footsteps, and a girl, barefoot, wrapped in linen, walking toward a well that no longer held water. She paused. Her eyes traced the stone walls, so smooth, so clean, as if the city had just exhaled. But there was no one else, only her, and the sound of water that wasn't there. She knelt beside the dry well. Its mouth was wide and round, lined with perfect bricks, unmoved by time. She reached down, touching the edge, smooth, cool stone. Then she saw it, just beneath her hand, etched faintly into the wall. A symbol, 2 circles, 1 hole, 1 cracked. She traced it with her fingertip. It wasn't decorative. It wasn't art. It meant something. Behind her, a gust of wind stirred dust into the air. But she didn't move. The symbol pulsed in her thoughts, heavy, like a memory she never lived. Then a voice, low and distant, hummed inside her mind. 1 death for the body, 1 death for the name. Her breath caught. She looked around, but the city was still, as if waiting for her to ask the next question. A faint breeze brushed her cheek, not from above, but from below. She leaned closer to the well's edge. There, hidden behind loose bricks, a narrow opening yawned. A tunnel. She hesitated, then crawled in. The stone closed around her, cool and silent. She moved carefully, hands on ancient walls, guided only by feel and instinct. The tunnel widened, then opened into a chamber. The air was thick, still, not stale, sacred. Torchlight flickered from a basin she didn't light. Shadows danced on the walls. She stepped forward and saw them. Figures painted in red ochre, a circle of men, arms raised. In the center, a man lying flat, not harmed, but empty. His eyes were closed. A crown lay beside him, untouched. This was the first death. Not murder, not war, surrender. The paintings wrapped around the chamber like a silent story. She stepped closer. New images. The man with closed eyes now stood, crowned. But no one around him looked. Their faces were turned away, blurred. Even the children in the scene walked past him, as if he were not there. She felt it then, a hollow ache. Not a pain, a being unseen. Another inscription, this time scratched into the floor. To die once is to fall. To die twice is to be erased. A name was carved beneath the words. Ancient script, delicate, fading. She leaned in to read it, but the moment her eyes touched the name, it vanished. A swirl of dust. Gone. Not stolen. Denied. She gasped. This was the second death, when the world forgets you ever lived. She stumbled back from the name that disappeared. But the chamber did not remain still. A soft tremor rolled through the stone beneath her feet. Not violent, rhythmic, like breath. The torch basin flickered. Images on the wall shimmered. Lines once still now pulsed with a faint light, soft gold. And then she saw herself. Not a reflection. A painted figure. A girl, barefoot, in linen, standing before the well. Painted thousands of years ago. Her heart pounded. She stepped closer. The figure moved. Only a little, a tilt of the head, a shift of the eyes. The city was watching her. And more than that, it knew her. A memory stirred in her chest. Not from childhood, but from before she was born. Words filled her mind, not in sound, but in weight. If one remembers, one lives. The chamber dimmed. Stone faded. And in its place, the world changed. She was no longer in the ruin, not in the tunnel, not even in her time. She stood atop a balcony of red brick. Mohawk lived around her, bright, full, alive. The city was awake. Children laughed. Water flowed through stone-carved channels. Scribes walked with armfuls of tablets. She turned. The crown man, the one from the chamber painting, stood beside her. But no one looked his way. He watched them all, smiling gently. He raised a hand to speak, but the sky darkened. A shadow, wide and low like a cloud, but silent. It passed above the city. Then, stillness. No screams. No fire. Just sudden, perfect quiet. The people froze, and the river forgot how to move. The vision faded like mist in the morning sun. The chamber returned. Dust. Stone. Stillness. But something had changed. The girl stood differently now. Straighter. Heavier. As if carrying something unseen. The air was warm again. Alive. She looked at the wall where her image had once appeared. It was gone. In its place, an empty frame. Waiting. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the stone. She didn't know what to carve. She didn't know the words. But the wall accepted her touch. Each press of her finger left a glowing trace. Not a name. Not a story. Just presence. Proof she had been there. And that someone, anyone, had remembered. Behind her, the wind rose again. No longer cold. Not whispering warnings, but singing welcome. Mohenjo-daro had never died. It had simply waited to be seen. The desert breathed, not with wind, but with memory. Beneath dunes the color of copper and bone. A city once roared with the voices of conquerors, scribes, and gods. Now, only the sand remained. Endless, soft, heavy, but it was not empty. Far beneath the surface, buried in stone and silence. Osingul Emberguld, waiting, not for rescue, not for light, but for someone who could listen to fire. A traveler approached, wrapped in worn cloth, eyes hidden behind dust. He had no map, no karavan, only a name he'd heard once in a dream. Akkad. He spoke it aloud, and the ground beneath him trembled. The tremor faded. Dust swirled at the traveler's feet, and then something surfaced. A corner of stone, char-black. He knelt, brushing away centuries with quiet fingers. It was a tablet. Cracked. Heavy. The writing scorched, but still legible. The symbols were Akkadian, sharp and slanted like teeth. He lifted it gently. It was warm, too warm, and as his hands steadied, he heard it. A low, humming sound. Not outside. Inside. The tablet whispered. Not in words, but in memory. Flashes. A city of red walls. Bronze banners flapping over gates of flame. And a king, tall, golden-eyed, holding a torch higher than the moon. The voice spoke. We did not fall. We were consumed, and we chose the fire. The traveler stood slowly, the tablet pressed to his chest. The warmth did not fade. If anything, it grew stronger. He followed it, across the cracked earth, down a slope of wind-polished stone, until the sand gave way beneath his feet, revealing steps. He descended. The ruin was not above ground. Akkad had buried itself, as if ashamed, or protecting something. He moved through archways of melted brick, walls half-glassed by heat, but the patterns were still there. Symbols etched into stone, swirling in flame shapes. Some pulsed faintly as he passed, like embers breathing. Then he reached a chamber. Circular, sealed tight. He pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick with warmth and scent. Not decay. Cedar. Spice. Smoke. The fire was alive. And at its center, a throne. Empty. But above it, words were carved in gold. To rule the fire, one must first burn. He reached out. His fingers hovered just above the throne's armrest. The stone radiated warmth, steady, alive. Then he touched it. The chamber vanished. Fire bloomed behind his eyes. Not pain, but vision. He stood on a high platform, wind cutting across the open plain. Before him, thousands knelt in silence. This was Akkad, newborn, magnificent. The buildings rose like crimson waves, curved and gleaming under the copper sun. Banners fluttered, not of war, but of order. He heard the king's voice, not shouting, calm, measured. We will not be remembered by the blood we spill, but by the flame we control. Scribes wrote his words in molten script. Builders moved with ritual precision. No dandemnis, no chaos, This was not just a city. It was design. Akkad had not conquered the world. It had reshaped it, brick by burning brick.